On this episode, I'm interviewing my friend and fellow online business owner, Liz. She's a former designer turned studio manager for creatives, and she's one of the first connections that I ever made whenever I got into online business nearly a decade ago. We're talking all about the ins and outs of her recent rebrand, what she's learned working with creative businesses of all sizes over the years, her maybe unpopular thoughts about keeping your business small on purpose, and of course, we're going to dive into the absolute chaos that is business and motherhood. I hope you guys enjoy the episode. Welcome to the Six Figure Brand Podcast, where each week we're pulling back the curtain on what it really takes to build a six-figure business as an online service provider. I'm your host, Morgan. I'm a branding expert, online agency owner, mom of two, and military spouse, and I'm obsessed with helping entrepreneurs like you understand the ins and outs of branding so that you can use it to grow your business without sacrificing your sanity. Whether you're just starting out or focused on scaling, we're diving into everything you need to build a profitable and sustainable online business. Let's get to it. Today we have my good friend Liz. She owns a business called Lux and Vita, and she is a studio manager for online creative businesses. So Liz, I'm super excited to have you. Can you tell us just like a quick cliff notes of kind of who you are and what your business is and how you got started in online business?
Yeah, so I'm Liz from Lux and Vita. I just did a huge rebrand and I'm now a studio manager. I actually started 8 years ago as a website designer, and then kind of over the years did pivots, but did a jump from being a website designer to being a VA, and then pivoted up to an OBM or an online business manager. And then recently was like, yeah, that doesn't actually fit, but a studio manager does. And basically it's that middle step between a VA and an OBM, where a VA is super task driven, like you manage them and give them tasks. OBM is really like high level strategy, growing, scaling. They don't need a lot of oversight. They're also helping manage you and all of your stuff. And a studio manager is like right in the middle. It's the perfect role because a lot of it is like project management, taking all the project management off your plate, inbox management, client and lead communication, but also setting up like super strategic systems, getting automation set up, getting your workflow set up so that there is a lot of that admin stuff that's just off everybody's plate. And then just basically managing the projects and stuff. It's more of that middle space where you're not necessarily wanting to grow and scale and have this big old team and like have an agency and have all these contractors and team members. It's more about staying small, getting things off your plate so you can actually be creative, or just take a random Tuesday off and do whatever you want.
Yeah, I love that. That was actually like a perfect overview of all the things that we're going to kind of cover in this episode. So that was great. Okay, so you recently rebranded your business. I'll leave it to you if you want to call it a full rebrand or a refresh. But can you tell me a little bit about that? I know that kind of coincided with a lot of the market research that you did around like BA versus studio manager versus OBM and kind of like shifting your offerings and stuff. So what led you to be like, okay, I need to refresh my brand?
It all kind of kickstarted with me not feeling totally comfortable with like actually being an OBM. I used this analogy with someone once and I was like, it's kind of like those pair of jeans that you put on and you look great in them. Everyone loves them. It looks like the perfect fit, but inside when you sit down, you're just like pulling it up, adjusting. It's like it never totally fits, right? And you just feel uncomfortable. Some moments you're like, yeah, I feel great in this. But most part, you're like, this just is not working in any way. And like it kind of sticks in your brain. And that's really how it felt with it being an OBM. I'm like, it's great. It's a kind of a bigger buzzword. I feel like in the last couple years of like everyone has an OBM. And so it made sense. It's a term people know, but it wasn't exactly everything that I was doing was what an OBM does. And I was realizing, I'm like, I don't want to help people scale. I don't want to manage these teams. I don't want to deal with all of like these big problems and like future planning and doing these big things. I'm like, that's just not where I want to be and where I want to go. I love when I was working with clients who were smaller, who wanted it to be like them, me, and like maybe one or two other people, whether they were like ongoing and we had them on all the projects, or we had them on like projects here and there, but it was small, it was cozy. It just felt like a lot, not necessarily easier, but you had kind of more of an ease and a flow to it. And there's also a lot less drama. We'll say that. And so I kind of just, when I realized that that was bothering me, I'm like, I don't even know what the term is yet, but it's just something. And so I started to have conversations with people and do market research. And I'm like, okay, I'm doing a big shift. I finally came up with a term, studio manager. And I was like, here's all the questions I want to ask you. I kept my audience the same. And it was really just shifting the title. But then also I realized my services don't match. So I did end up hiring a consultant for services. And she helped me create all of my new services, refine my retainer. And then when I had that, I'm like, okay, but now that I've refined all of those pieces, the visuals, the brand voice, the actual branding does not fit. And because I started out as a designer, I know myself really well. I know my skill level is at a certain point, but the way that I imagine it is higher. And I knew that there was the gap between my skill set and my knowledge and all that. And I'm like, I can't do this myself. So that's where I hired someone because I've been doing research forever, but then I did a semi-custom brand and bought a website template because I know my skills. I'm like, they had exactly what it was I wanted for like the visual side of things. I knew once we customize and stuff, it would hit that mark. And then from there, I could take it based on my skills, my knowledge, I could get it to line up. And it did. And then for the brand voice, I'm so snarky, it's ridiculous. I have a very dry sense of humor, super snarky, sarcastic, and I've never really let that show. In my branding, it's very been the clean, bright, airy, like happy, bubbly thing. But then once you meet me, you're like, oh my God, you've got like such like kind of a dark humor. People are a little bit thrown by that. And I'm like, yeah, I probably need to like get that to match up a little bit. So with the whole rebrand, I'm like, you know what? At this point, I'm just gonna run with that, see how it takes, and see if I can actually get those to like line up. And as soon as I started getting the brand messaging, got the brand voice, I got the visuals, I got the services all lined up, all going, and I launched it, it just felt good. And it's kind of funny because I've had a lot of conversations with people since launching it, and they're like, this is 100% you. And I know not all branding is supposed to like be you because you're also thinking about the different factors and your clients and stuff. But for me, I needed it to feel like me, for me to feel comfortable and confident in my business, in what I'm doing. And yeah, it's been great and I love it. And it's really fun seeing how it actually like came out and launched when I did, and just how everyone's kind of reacted to actually being salty, because most people are not salty. And so people are like, whoa, you are. And I'm like, I know.
Yeah, you mentioned this, but we've known each other for a long time. I want to say like maybe since like 2017 or 18.
I was gonna say it's been like 6 or 8 years. I've been in business like 8 years. I feel like we met. I feel like, did we meet when maybe I was a designer?
Yeah,
Maybe it might have been like right at that transition point.
And I remember when you like launched your new brand on social probably a couple months ago now, being like, oh my gosh, this is so lit. And I thought that what you had before was beautiful. Like I always
Thank you.
viewed you as somebody who really had it together branding wise. And so then I was like, why is she updating her branding? It's great. And then I saw what you and your designer and all the contractors that you brought in worked on. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like so Liz. And I think you bring up a really good point as far as brand goes, of like, it's a fine line between you want it to feel like you so that you're confident showing up, and so that there's not a disconnect when somebody sees one thing online and then gets on a call with you and they're like, oh, that's not what I was expecting. And you also want to make sure that it speaks to your ideal client. And as service providers in particular, that's a difficult fine line to walk. So I think that's where, if you can invest in bringing in some outside support, it's going to be really helpful. Because also, so you mentioned you talked with somebody to help you with your services, with messaging, with design. They can see things in you that maybe you don't even notice is notable. So yeah, I think that's really interesting. Another thing I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that you have a design background, obviously, and that contrary to what you might think, like somebody probably is listening to this thinking, why didn't you just design it yourself? And you said you were trying to be really intentional about that, of like, I know what I want and I'm not there with my design skills. How do you think having that design background helped you to work with your designer to be able to get something that you did love? Because I think I have a podcast or episode that's going to air before this one comes out. So if someone's listening to this, they will hopefully have already heard that one. And it's all about how to know when to DIY or hire something out. And I think design in particular is something that people either think I can't do this at all, or they think I should be able to do it myself, so it's not worth paying for. And it's, especially as a former designer, I imagine that could have been a difficult thing for you to kind of sort through.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it's kind of, like I was saying, it's kind of that gap. I mean, I'm also very self-aware. So I know my own personal limitations on where I imagine, because I wanted it to be, like, I liked and loved my branding that I've had over the years. I mean, I look back and sometimes I cringe and I'm like, what was I thinking about, like, some of these choices? I loved my previous branding, but there was just something in the back of my mind that was like, this isn't as polished and speaking to the quality of work that I do. And I work with designers, like, they are my clients. So for me, with having a background in design, with working with designers, I need my branding to actually fit that level so they understand, like, I understand what it's like to run that kind of business because I did. I literally have proof. Like, look at all of my branding. Like, I know what, I at least somewhat on some level know what it's like to do that. But I knew that there was some disconnect, and it's like, I couldn't figure out what it was. And for me, like, I knew a general idea. Like, so what the brand designer had, because I bought like a pre-made template and then she was customizing it, like, I saw the design. And that was like, I'm like, that right there, I can imagine if we get some tweaks and then using their knowledge and seeing like their past work, I'm like, okay, I know she can have the vision, like, take the vision I've got and run with it, but that she can also like really, like, trusting her skills is really what I was doing. But like, she had a great questionnaire. I took a lot of time. Like, it's been a process. Like, I took a long time before I hired her, like, researching and really diving into a lot of different details, getting into like mood boards and visuals, because I'm like, I also know very specifically what I was looking for. And I know that's a very difficult thing with designers, of like coming in with like, this is what I want, and you're going to just deliver it like pixel pusher. Never. Like, I'm never going to hire someone to do that. And I was trying very hard not to do that. Because I remember that was the bane of my existence when I decided, just like, you have and like, yeah. So just a lot of it really, I'll have to say, a lot of it was really, I had the vision, but I knew I couldn't execute on it. And that was the point where I was like, I can't execute on it if I'm trying to get to a certain level of clients and expertise, and to actually show up in this next era of my business as the expert that I want to be seen as, and to be taken as seriously as I want to be taken seriously, and actually show up. And like, I don't know, I'm a very visual person. Designers are very visual, obviously. And we all judge things because that's, as designers, like, I didn't want someone to come to my website, to my socials, and to see like a meh design and be like, like, sure, like, you probably pulled a Canva graphic together, maybe bought a template or something, but it doesn't actually like fit. And like, I wanted it to really be like, oh, I love that. Okay, visuals. Okay, now we're getting into the copy. Now we're getting into messaging, and like kind of going through that thing. And it's just, I just knew myself enough to know I couldn't do it myself to actually get the level that I wanted it to be at.
Are you ready to put your foot on the gas and grow your business to six figures? It all starts with a solid strategic brand foundation. Join the Six Figure Brand Society today. It's the only place where you can get one-on-one support from a branding expert for under $200 a month. Head to sixfigurebrandsociety.com or use the link in the show notes to watch our free training, where you'll get a sneak peek of what's included in the membership and how my team and I can help support you in building your profitable and sustainable six-figure brand. Yeah, and I think, I don't know, maybe unfortunately for somebody listening who is newer to business, but I think that is really just something that comes with time and learning about yourself. I say all the time that business is like the biggest personal development project you will ever work on, and like so much about yourself. And eventually you get to that point where you're like, okay, I can do these things or I want to do these things. And so it's worth it to outsource somewhere else. You touched on so many things that I say in sales calls and when I'm talking with branding clients of like it just kind of felt like it didn't fit anymore. I wasn't really showing up the way I wanted to show up. I want people to be seen as like the expert that I really am. And that's kind of where like knowing your ideal client comes in too. Obviously, I want everyone to have a beautiful, elevated, polished brand. But in your case, like you said, your clients are designers. So I can tell you from experience, are quite literally opening up like 5 tabs of OBM, I'm just going to use as like a blanket term, websites. And they're going through and they're judging the visuals on all of them. And that's like their first layer of weeding people out. So that's something that you can do to really, really, really stand out. And I think even if your clients aren't designers, that still applies. Like
Always.
it's important to look as expert as you are.
Yeah. And that's honestly like that's what I that's what I did when I was hiring different people for things. And even honestly over the years, and even when I'm helping like my clients try and find someone that they're like, hey, I need this kind of support. Can you help me figure that out? And like see if they're a fit. A lot of times I'm very like looking at the visuals. I'm like, okay, do you actually look like you know what you're talking about? Or did you just slap something together and just call it a day and say that's good enough? And at some point, like when you're just starting out, absolutely, you have to get something there so you can be seen. But the more you're in business, I'm like, you need to kind of start leveling up different like aspects of things to the level of your expertise. Because unfortunately, people are always going to judge that. Like that's just how it goes.
Yeah. And to your point, like there is absolutely a time and a place in your business where good enough is good enough. And like buying a template on Etsy or throwing something together yourself in Canva is what you should do. I talk about that in like on the podcast and in my social content frequently. But I think also I look at it as your website looks super polished, super professional, very like well thought out. And so now I trust that that's the level of care you put into your business. So that's also the level of care that you're going to put into my business. If
Yeah.
I'm looking at your website and I'm like, obviously ChatGPT wrote this and you didn't even catch the typos, then like that's not somebody that I want to trust with
Yeah.
the business that I have worked so hard for like nearly a decade to build.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't want to see that you're just phoning it in. Like,
Exactly.
are you just going to phone it in with my business, especially if I'm trusting you and especially if you're paying more or ongoing?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
or it's like strategy, or there's a lot of times that's just like, I'm like, do I actually trust you that you're taking this and me and my business and my money seriously? Yeah, debatable. And then I'll close out the window and I'll
Yep.
never think of it again.
Yep. Yeah. And I think also part of it is about being memorable, right? Like your old branding was too, and your new branding is so distinctive that like I don't need to see Lux and Vita at the top to know that your content is yours. And I think that is something that we should all strive to do with our brands, but also like such a testament to why it's worth it to like be really intentional about this process and to really make sure you're hiring the right people and that you're not just saying, well, Liz's favorite color is black, so we're going to make everything black.
You say as I'm wearing black right now. Yeah. And I think that's too, because that is something I've done is I like, even when I was researching just to see like, am I on the right track with like the new branding and like, will it actually stand out? I opened up like 15 different people in my industry and they all have very, very similar looks. And I'm like, once mine's done, it's going to be like the opposite. Like, I mean, I've got like that, what my friend called it, a dark, moody greenhouse vibe. And I'm like, heck yes, it is. Because everyone else is like the light, bright, airy, like in a studio, like kind of shots. And I'm like, meh, we're going to go dark, moody, a little bit like got the snarky saltiness. Like, we're going to go different.
Yeah. Well, And that's super funny. So I'm going to give people a little like peek behind the curtain at my podcast process. So whenever I was like planning for this and outlining kind of what I wanted to talk with you about, I downloaded a couple of the emails that you had sent recently and then like your website, and I put them all into ChatGPT and was like, hey, I'm interviewing Liz. Here's what I want to talk to her about, blah, 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 blah. Can you help me like brainstorm some additional questions? And I'm not kidding you. It like, you know how it puts little emojis next to
Yeah.
text whenever it outlines? It put the little plant, like the fern emoji. And I was like, yes, he's going to love that. So like even the internet robots can pick up on your brain, which I thought was so funny.
Yes. That is
So
a huge one right there. I love that.
let's talk about your experience working in all these different types of businesses. So there was a time a few years ago that you and I were both on a team with a client that we shared, and that was super fun. So I've kind of seen from like the inside how impactful it is to have someone like you on the team as a creative business. And I'm sure that you've also seen some stuff in the online business world. So can you maybe kind of talk us through like some big do's and don'ts that you see when trying to grow like a creative business? And I think particularly related to like scaling, because you talked about that like that's not really something you want to help people do, but it is something that you've done successfully before. And there's so much talk on the internet of like scale, 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 got to keep growing, which we'll get into that a little bit. But what have you seen that like works and doesn't work if somebody was listening to this and thinking, okay, I want some advice from somebody who's been behind the scenes of growing these type of businesses?
Yeah. The biggest thing, honestly, contracts. Making sure you actually have contracts for your clients, but especially for your team, whether they are like I have had a couple clients who have actual like employees, but most people that I work with, like they have contractors, whether they're on retainer like I am, or they are hourly, or they're per project. Like I've been on all of those kind of teams. Contracts honestly is the biggest thing. And that's the thing, funny enough, so many people don't do or don't do right, or they don't actually think through potential situations that may pop up when it comes to all of that. But a lot of it really is contracts are a huge thing in making sure you're protected, but also that you're protecting the people that you're working with, whether it's the client or the team member, and making sure that you're taking care of them too. Because sometimes, like, people will only sign, like your team member will sign your contract or you'll sign theirs. But a lot of times people aren't doing it like both ways. But contracts honestly are the biggest thing in making sure, like, payment terms. How are you paying? When are you paying? What happens if people want to cancel? What happens if someone absolutely hates everything that you've done? You've followed all of your boundaries. You've followed the contract, and they still are just like, I hate everything. I want a refund. Do you actually have terms around that that are solid, that are like, I've delivered exactly what I said I was going to deliver? I have a creative clause or a creative license clause where it's like, it's not going to exactly, I'll take your input, but it may not turn out exactly like that. I'm not a pixel pusher, essentially, because I've seen some stuff go down where I had a client almost go to court with someone because they wanted to sue them. I've just seen it where my clients are like, you know what, you are in a lot of circles with people I want to work with. I'm just gonna, you know what, suck it up. I'm gonna refund you a little bit. I shouldn't have to in any way because you've completely just like shredded our team, like verbally abused the team. Been on calls before with that. It's not very fun. But just to get them out of the hair, like, we do this, but it's also because they didn't have a great contract at the time and learned a lesson on the terms to put in. But it honestly, getting a contract that's actually legally sound from like a creative lawyer and not just like a regular business lawyer, because they don't understand the creative world and like the situations that might pop up. Yeah, I think that's a big one. But then also, I would say like onboarding and actually like how you want to take care of your team, how you actually want to like run your business like that. Because there are a lot of people who think they want to have a team because they want to get bigger and bigger and bigger, but they don't actually know how to have the leadership skills to have a team. So then they hire someone like an OBM and think they can just hand that off to them and that they can just step out and be like, all right, you get to manage the team, lead the team, but also as the business owner, you set the vision, you set the pace, and the OBM or whatever, like, would then be able to take it and carry it, but like, it's not their business. They can help with it, but that's not necessarily like their job. So there's a lot of bigger things when you're like trying to grow a bigger team or whatever.
Yeah, I think we talk a lot about like, oh, there's so many hats that you have to wear as a business owner, and that's true. And I think we all kind of gloss over the people management hat. Like,
Mhm.
I started my own business because I just hated sitting in a cubicle and I hated asking for time off. And I was like, I can design stuff for my own client just as well as I can for the company that I work for. And it was not ever a thought in my mind that one day I was going to have people working for me and that I needed to put actual effort into learning how to be a good like leader of my team. So that was a fun little unexpected adventure for me as a business owner, and I'm sure for everybody else. And I think too, growing, like knowing why you're trying to scale, if that's what you're doing, right? If it's just because you're
Absolutely.
like stuck in this more and more and more hamster wheel, it's never going to be enough. You're going to burn yourself out. You're going to probably treat people pretty shitty and like burn some bridges. And then you're going to end up closing your business or going back to corporate or like feeling like you need to burn it all down and start over. So
Yeah.
it's a good segue into your whole staying small on purpose thing. I don't want to say that you've been like on a soapbox about it, but you've been putting out a lot of content around that, and I've been thoroughly enjoying it. And kind of interestingly, because I'm in a phase where I'm like ready to start shifting more into an agency model, not necessarily because like I don't have aspirations of being a $1 million business, but I'm in a stage in life where my time is so limited that if I am going to grow at all, it's going to have to be by outsourcing. So I'm trying to really walk that line of like, yes, I do want to grow, but I also want my business to like feel small and feel like my team is a family and not overextend ourselves. So can you talk to us a little bit about like what kind of led you to be so passionate about that? And I assume probably it's been things you've seen in your own business and in clients' businesses, but just sort of like what that journey has looked like and how it changes the way you run your business.
Yeah, so I've been on teams where we have, and like I'm on one right now, and there's 7 or 8 of us. That's the biggest team I'm on. And the amount of pressure that is on several of us on the contractor side, like my client, and then me and one other person, like we're kind of like out of the team, we're kind of like the leadership side of things. There's a lot of pressure. And while I'm a contractor, I'm not an employee. So it's a very different thing, but I'm very invested in my client's business and making sure it's running, that it's profitable, that it's sustainable, because also like you make money, I stay on the team. So I feel like when you have a larger team, there's a pressure with that leadership role of feeling like you need to keep coming up with ideas on how to get more clients, make things more efficient, make it so that we can complete the work faster, so that we can get in new clients faster, so that we can give them a better client experience, so that we can get them coming back, so that we can get them referring other people to us and like just keep going, going, going. And while, yes, that's the point of business, but with a bigger team, there's so much more pressure because you have so many people on your team depending on you to get those people in the door or to retain them. And so like I've run into the problem and seen a lot of my clients and just other friends I've chat with in the industry, like if you're running the business and it's your business and you have that big of a team, the amount of work that a lot of times it's hard to like step back from being the person doing the work, whether you're the writer, the designer, whatever. Like it's harder for you to like step back from being the person doing the things, handing it to your team so you can actually focus on marketing, so you can focus on relationships, networking, getting your name out there so that you can get more people in the door. Like your role changes drastically when you are trying to grow to that size to sustain a big team because you have to have those people coming in the door to sustain that size of team. And it just I've seen it get to a point where for whatever reason, like marketing was doing good, still doing the same marketing, not every like, but like the world changed, the industry that my clients were wanting that they were in, like their ideal client industry, that changed. So their leads changed. And then we started, like I've had been on teams where we slowly had to start letting people go, and it's painful. It's very painful to then like to get so like you have your team, you're gelling, everyone's working really well, everything's going well, but then the leads start coming in slower, booked projects start getting smaller, and hit this point and you're like, I can't sustain this. You start taking pay cuts, you start trying to cut down on software and trying to figure out how to like cut down expenses before cutting your team. But then you get to the point where you're like, I've cut what I can cut. I can't do it anymore. I have to let these people go. And then it's heartbreaking watching my clients have to let team members go or to cut down their hours or their package or to tell them like it's not goodbye forever, it's for right now until we get projects and then we'll bring you back on like a per project basis or something, and just like all of this starts changing and then they have to step back in and then start doing that work while trying to market and keep everything going. And it just, I've seen it happen a lot, and it's exhausting. And it's not, for me, it's not something I want to be doing anymore. And that's part of why I wanted to shift to smaller teams. Also, like my own personal availability. I got a 4-year-old. He's home with me all day, every day. So my own capacity for being on bigger teams where I'm trying to do a lot of big things while also marketing my own business, like it wasn't there. And I'm like, you know what? I really want to work with people who want to stay small intentionally, who want to have their business revolve around their life, not have their life revolve around their business. That shift, when I started to realize that, I'm like, that, like, and I had to sit with it for a while and see, like, is it just because I'm just burned out with trying to help people scale, but then realizing like we're all panicking because everything is shifting and no one's hiring, and like we're all just kind of like scrambling, trying to figure stuff out. And so we're doing all these other things, and a little bit of that, but mostly it was just like that's just not where I'm personally at in my life. And while I'm not a personal brand, I feel like kind of like what I was saying about like I wanted my branding to feel like me, like it feels for me very personal. Like I want to have the kind of lifestyle I'm trying to like give my clients, and like I want to show that example of like I am working the amount of hours I want to work with the amount of products I want to work, and I'm building my business in a way that supports my life. So I can go take a Tuesday off and do whatever. So I can just take a 3-day weekend, or every year I take the last 2 weeks off in December. Like I'm gone. I do not answer anything. I am closed. And I've actually like been able to get to a point where all of my clients' businesses are also closed for 2 weeks. Everybody completely shuts down. And like, I want to be able to like show my clients, like, I'm trying to get the work done for you to be able to take time off. I want to show you what that looks like when like I'm taking this time off, and this is how I built my inbox. So I'm not just chained to it all day. So that's how we're going to build your inbox. So you're not chained to it all day. Or that's how we do it about your project management tool or your automations, and like trying to show them that. And like, you don't have to have this big, crazy business if you don't want to. And like, you can make 6, 7 figures as a tiny team. I've seen people do it as a solopreneur. Like there is no limit to how much you can make with the team size that you have. And I know a lot of people are like, yeah, but I can't. I'm like, I've seen it done. I've seen teeny tiny teams make an insane amount of money, but it's because they like have set up stuff. And so like, I just want to start working with people who are smaller and like trying to show people like, you don't have to be scared about having a small business. A small business is intentional. It doesn't mean you failed.
Yeah, and I think that there's a lot of good stuff that you just said about kind of just like practicing what you preach a little bit. Like you can't go to a client and be like, hire me so that you can get 10 hours of your week back or something. And then you're like a slave to your computer and never taking time off. And people are going to be like, well, really? So it's another, I think, good point about like having an aligned brand and running your business in an aligned way. And I think too, a lot of what you said is not telling people like, don't grow. It's more about growing sustainably and intentionally. Cause like I have been on the other side of that where during COVID, I was subcontracting for another design agency. Their clients were all brick and mortar businesses. So all their clients had closed their doors and they were like, well, I don't have any work, so I can't give you work. And it was a huge bummer for me because that was like one of my bigger clients. I understood, obviously, that like the business owner was just in a bind and there was nothing they could do. Like, I totally get it. But it's such a like ripple effect. And I think that we need to think about that whenever we're scaling of like, not can I afford this person on my team today or next month, but like in the long term. Because people rely on you. And I've heard from more business owners than just you who have said like having that big team just got to be too much. And I felt so much pressure that like I'm responsible for these people's livelihoods that it was crippling. Like I just couldn't do it anymore. So yeah, and I don't think you need to stay a solopreneur forever if that's not what you want to do. I just think taking a sec to not like feed into this grow, 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 grow mentality and thinking about how does this look in the long term? How am I going to be able to sustain this? What happens if business slows down? That kind of a thing is saves you a lot of stress and headache.
Yeah. I feel like there's a lot of things people can do to actually prepare for that because I feel like no one actually talks about how to actually prepare outside of set up your recipes. Like, yeah, that's great and all, but before you even get there, honestly, it's like know your numbers. Like, look at how much you're actually charging for things. How much time to actually take? What do you want to pay yourself? That's literally like the first question I ask my clients is, what do you actually want to pay yourself? Are you paying that? Like, are you paying yourself just as yourself, as just where you're at right now? Like, are you actually paying yourself what you want to be paying yourself?
Is your brand and website feeling stale, outdated, and disjointed? If you're feeling a little called out, we should chat. Spect & Co is here to help you show up with more confidence and book more clients through personalized and strategic branding and website design. Anyone could design you a pretty logo, but our strategy-backed system has helped our clients triple their audience size, double their revenue year over year, and increase their rates by over 30%. If that sounds too good to be true, I promise it's not. Use the link in the show notes to book a free discovery call so we can chat about what strategic branding and web design could mean for your business. And I think part of this is like a mom thing, and part of it is like a people-pleasing thing. But I know for me, I just am going to put myself last every time. Like I'm going to make sure everybody else is taken care of. So whenever things get tight or we book less clients than I was hoping to in a month, the first thing to go is my own salary. And like, I'm sorry, but I did not get into business to be working for free.
Yep. Yeah.
So, yeah. So speaking of the mom stuff, you mentioned you have a toddler at home. We just had to take a quick pause for a break so that Liz could get a cricket off of her dining room table. So moms will relate. And I remember you just being so supportive of me whenever I found out I was pregnant with my first daughter and being like, hey, let's get on a call so I can give you some pointers about like maternity leave and running a business with a baby home and like all that stuff. And I know like your husband also has a super demanding job. So a majority of the parenting kind of falls on you, which is obviously like a lot mentally and time-wise. And your son isn't in any sort of daycare. So he's home with you all the time. So yeah, talk me through like kind of even from the beginning, like how you prepared for your life to change so much. Cause I think you're sort of like me in that like we both want to be very productive. So like I was fine spending 50 hours a week working before I had kids. And I like truly enjoyed it. And now that's not an option. And like my entire life and my entire business model has had to really change to accommodate that. So tell us about mom and business life a little bit.
Yeah. So when I first found out, I feel like it's a little harder. I don't know. Some days I'm like, it's harder, but not really. Like, it was tricky planning for maternity leave as someone who only had, at that time, like, I had some, like, one-off clients, but, like, for the most part, like, the bulk of my business was retainer work. So I was going to take a 3-month maternity leave. Like, how do you just disappear from a client's business for 3 months? Like, while still getting paid? Like, doesn't really work. But I had to end up hiring a project manager to come in and like basically handle things while I was gone. And then like I kept her on because I needed that kind of support because I knew my own time was just not going to be there. Because I mean, like you said, like, I mean, I was working like 40, 50 hours a week and like not batting an eye. And I was like, this is awesome because it's me, myself, and I, and my husband, obviously. But I was like, I can work as long as I want and no one's gonna care. But then kiddo gets here and yeah, that went out the window between naps, no naps, hating being in the car, getting nap trapped, like now to the point where like right now, like as we're recording, he's in quiet time and like he's not actually sleeping. He's just like walking around upstairs, chilling, reading books, like, and this is like when I work. And so it's taken a lot of like pivots and giving myself a ton of grace and trying to figure out like, okay, how much time do I actually have to do work and to be able to do mom stuff, to be able to do stuff for myself outside of being a mom, outside of work, and trying to figure all that out. And there's no such thing as balance. It's just figuring out your priorities for the hour that you're in. And honestly, we also don't have family near us because we've also moved a few times. And so it really is me all day, every day. And for a while when he was super little, we did have like there was one of our friends, their teenager was homeschooled. And so they would come over like maybe 2 hours a week, 3 hours a week, every other week or so, like just so I had some dedicated time. But other than that, it was just fitting work in between momming it up and just flexing with it. Sometimes I worked late nights, I worked weekends, basically so I could have enough time and like focus because I wanted to be present for my son, but I also knew I had to still run a business while also teaching him like I work from home. It means that I can work anytime, but it means that I am going to have to do some work sometimes. It may not be very fun and it may interrupt our day a little, but as soon as we're done with this, we get to go do this. And so there's a lot of times, even now, like this morning, I had to do some work stuff and I was like, okay, we're going to read stories and build with your Legos until my timer goes off. And then I'm going to set a new timer and I'm going to work and you're going to play on your own. And then we're going to go back and play. And it's just like, we've kind of like built a little bit of a routine and like figuring out what works for us. Some days it works and some days it does not work. And it is a hot mess. And our best friend becomes Octonauts and Bluey. And that's okay. That part has taken me a while to get okay with.
Yeah, I remember towards the end of my most recent pregnancy, I had a 1.5-year-old with me, and I was getting pretty uncomfortable there at the end and being like, I'm such a terrible parent. Like, Mickey Mouse is literally raising my child right now. And now that we're through that, like, she's fine. She doesn't think that I'm a terrible mom. Like, we're all okay. But I think that's a hard thing to like get okay with, of like, you're never going to have a 50-50 balance. Some days are going to be more business focused. Some days you're going to be more family focused. And in the end, hopefully it all shakes out to be pretty even.
Yeah. I feel like kind of gotten to a place where it's like, I grew up there was TV in the house, like grew up in the age of cell phones stuff finally coming out. But like, I didn't grow up with TV all the time. Like it was a rare thing. And like, it never was like this thing where like you can be glued to it or whatever. But like, I feel like with my son, my husband and I, like, it's taken us a while to be like, we're not watching TV every day. There's seasons where that honestly might just happen because I have to get through a chunk of very time sensitive work that my clients are depending on that has to be done within like the 9 to 5 working hours. And so in those seasons, like I've had to learn and give myself grace because I can be very hard on myself with that. And just being like, I'm a terrible mom. He's always in front of the TV. When in reality, it's like he maybe watched one 30-minute episode. But like the whole concept, I'm like, oh my gosh, he's watching TV. I'm on my phone. I feel so bad, but I'm also like, you know what? He's having fun. He's enjoying himself. I'm getting work done. I'm able to be home with my son, provide for my family. It's going to be okay. Like, it's just sometimes one of those things where sometimes I sit there, like, and I just realize I'm so freaking lucky that I can be home with my son all day, every day and still do things that I love and work with people that I love and do things that make me happy. And you're also teaching your kids, like, you don't have to do a standard job. You don't have to do whatever. Like I know some people put them in daycare, and I'm like, right now we're just not in a place for that. Like we've done classes and sports, and like it's just so fun because like when I meet new parents, they're like, do you just say like, are you stay at home mom? And I'm like, no, actually I run my own business. And they're like, what now? Like, how do you do it?
It's rare that I find somebody that's like, oh wow, and they like get it. I have to do a lot of explain, or they'll be like, oh, is your maternity leave over? Are you back to work? And I'm like, well, yeah, but like not in the way that you're thinking. Like it's just such a foreign concept to people who don't have any exposure to like online business or like running your own business or anything. What they think like, okay, baby's 12 weeks, time to go back to work full time. And I think you're right that we are so lucky that it doesn't have to be that way if we don't want it to. And like I know plenty of moms who run their own businesses that do have their kids in full-time daycare because that's what
Yeah.
works for their family.
And that's what
like,
they want to do. And I
yeah,
love that. There's some days where I'm like, dude, I need that. And then there's other days where I'm like, I just love, like, he's little. I love having him home. And then he does something, and I'm like, maybe I'm not. It's the every other moment you're like, yeah, no, the little Sour Patch Kid
yeah,
kind of deal
exactly.
going
And I
on.
think to your point of like just everything changes constantly with both kids and with business and like giving yourself grace that, you know, yeah, you could be having your son in like full-time daycare where he's not watching TV all day, but how much less of his mom would he see? So, and like for me with my situation, my husband's in the military, so he's gone for, I don't know, small chunks of time here and there. So like my daughter is now to the age where that is starting, like she notices now. So if I can be like something that is like very constant in her life, that is more valuable to me than being able to work like 40 hours a week. And I think too, we're like really in the thick of it right now. Like this is hopefully fingers crossed as like difficult and spread thin as I'm ever going to feel like things are. And then like they'll get older, they'll get more independent, they'll be able to go do quiet time upstairs while I work. So I think keeping that perspective for anyone that's like at home with a new baby wondering like how am I ever going to get back to work? Like it happens pretty quickly that they're able to start being more independent and then you're like, "Oh my gosh, my baby doesn't want to hang out with me anymore."
Yeah, it definitely, I mean, we just hit 4 years old. And I feel like the last like year or so, like we've really shifted from me having to be the one consistently playing, sitting on the floor, actually interacting in order for him to play. He'll sit on, like, we'll be in the living room. He'll be sitting on the floor, reading his books, well, look at the pictures, whatever, playing Legos, doing whatever. And like, he'll be talking to me, and I'm working on my computer. And like, we're engaging and talking, and like, I'll be like, he'll just like walk over and like chat with me, and like, I'll pause what I'm doing, give full attention, and be like, oh yeah. And then, like, we'll have a full on conversation. And then he'll go back to what he's doing. And we'll be able to do that for a few hours, like for the whole morning.
Yeah.
And it's like you kind of, it gets easier in a lot of aspects the older they get, just because the amount of time they need, like right in your face, like attention changes. And like, yeah, there's going to be moments where it's like, no, they literally need you. Like, they're going to be like tiny little clingy monkeys and just attached to you and you can't get anything done. But then there's going to be days where they're like, no, I'm good. I'm just going to go play on my own. See you in 2 hours. And you're like,
And then you're going to cry about it and be like,
okay, yep,
"My baby's growing up." Yeah.
you don't need me anymore. Like it's always a different kind of, it goes just like business. It's gonna go up and down. And some days it's really hard. Some days it's really easy and you're like, this is amazing. And other days you're like, why did I think I could have kids and run a business at the same time? Am I insane? I'm insane. Am I insane? I'm talking to myself now. Oh, I need to talk to an adult now.
I mean, I think we are all a little bit insane, but you know, I'm here for it. Okay, so you recently sent an email that had like a little put a finger down game, and I was like, oh my gosh, we need to play this on the podcast. So we're going to wrap up by playing a game of put a finger down. For those of you who have never played this at a sleepover in middle school, basically, like you say, I've never eaten pineapple on pizza, for example. And if you have done the thing, then you put a finger down. And at the end, whoever has the most fingers down, I don't know if you win or lose or what, but
I feel like
that's what you do.
feel like if you put all your fingers down, I think you lose.
I think so, right? Because it's like you've done
I
all these
mean,
like faux pas things.
I've played it both ways where if you put all your fingers down, you win. But then there's some people who play and it's like, it's all the really like negative, dirty details. And you're like, I don't want to win this game. Oh, no, I won and I should not be winning.
Yeah. Well, so the way I've framed these, it's definitely you want to have less fingers down than more. So, all right. Let's see. I'm just going to start with 5 fingers. Nobody can see me anyway, but we'll tell people where we're at the end. Put a finger down if you've ever fired a client. Okay. Liz and I both have 1 finger down.
I fired 15 in one day.
Oh my gosh. I remember. I so remember that. That's going to have to be like a separate episode. But for anyone listening, you can quite literally burn down your entire business and you'll be fine. Take it from Liz.
Absolutely.
Put a finger down if you have ever taken on a client who had red flags because you really needed the money. Okay. 2 fingers for each of us.
Nope.
Addressed an email to the wrong person. We're not even going to get to the end of this list.
We're failing so hard.
Grossly undercharged for your services.
Hence, I have fired 15 people in one day.
Okay, and then the last one we will do, not practiced what you preached around boundaries. All right. So for anyone listening, if you are like feeling guilty that you've done any of those things, it's fine. It's okay. Like I want on this podcast, especially with the guest episodes, to be very transparent of like, we are all messing up all the time and none of us know what we're doing and we're all just making it up and it's okay. The other one that I had on this list, which I didn't mention because we just talked about it, was let your kid have too much screen time so that you can get work done. So like, we're all just doing the best we can. And I think that's great. And if you want to keep your business small because you value other things in your life, like being there for your kids and not burning yourself out and not being responsible for 100 other people's livelihood, that is a totally valid way to do business. So thank you so much, Liz, for sharing your story with us. I feel like we touched on a lot from your rebrand to your experience with clients to even like what is the difference between a VA and an OPM, which I know is something that not enough people understand. And in your case, the kind of in between of being a studio manager. Can you let us know how we can best connect with you? Who would be an ideal client if they're looking for some sort of studio manager support, kind of where to go next if people really resonated with this conversation?
Yeah, so I guess I'll start with this part. I absolutely love working with those who are designers, copywriters in that kind of world, just because that's my background, that's my jam. I understand it. I've been there. We chatted on that. But mostly you can find me on Instagram. I'm finally back there after 4 years of just having a static 9 grid. It's Lux and Vita DSN because I've got my handle from way back in the day when I was a designer. And, well, never changed it.
Love it. Cool. Yeah. And I think too, we didn't really get a chance to talk about this, but Liz's clients stay with her for a long time. So it's rare that she has openings. But I would say if kind of what we talked about is having you like getting your wheels turning and you're like, oh, that's what I need, definitely still reach out to her because she can connect you with somebody who maybe does have availability or has other resources or what have you. And I just think Liz is a really fun person to follow online if you're into a little extra sass in your business Instagram feed. Cool. All right. Well, I will drop all of Liz's links in the show notes and we will see y'all for next week's episode. Thanks, Liz. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Six Figure Brand Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to rate the show and leave a review on whatever app you're listening on. And as a thank you, I'll send you coffee on me. Yes, I'm serious. As a smaller show for now, you taking the time to do this makes a huge impact on how we can reach more people and how I can continue to create this content for free. When you take a screenshot of your review, follow and tag me on Instagram at @SpectandCo. I'll send you a $5 Starbucks gift card. As always, don't forget to check out the show notes for any links or resources I mentioned during the episode. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week.